So welcome everyone to this evening's PMI Switzerland event. Our title is Level Up, Transitioning from Project Manager to Program Manager. Our speaker will be James Greene, and we have some sort of business to take care of at the beginning. So before we start, all attendees will be muted during the session. You will have the chance to ask a question if you raise your hand during the Q&A. So you can type questions, or you can actually request to be unmuted and ask a question in person. The session will be recorded and then published on the PMI Switzerland YouTube channel. There will be polls during the presentation, and we ask that everyone participate. Again, you can post questions by clicking on the Q&A below the screen, and we will have a Q&A time at the end of the talk. You can also ask to give the Q&A with your camera and your microphone on. Event slides and answers to unanswered questions will be sent via the post-event email. If you have any difficulties, please send a message to the host via the Zoom chat. If anyone else is having trouble getting in, it's important that they join with the same email with which they registered. So as our first poll, we'd like to ask where in the world you are joining from. So lots of people from Switzerland. This is not a big surprise. Also other European countries, Africa, Asia, Pacific. No North Americans, unfortunately. And then at the end, a few people from Central and Southern America. So this is a great way to start. And now our next step is to introduce Stefan quickly to discuss our 20th anniversary game.
Yes, hello, good evening to everyone from around the world. Not from the North America, yes, but from all around the world. I want to say hello from the beautiful Switzerland. And as you see, we are currently in the right season to have this beautiful view on top of the mountains, because in Switzerland, there are already some mountains with a lot of snow. Some you won't know, I think most of you know that this year is our 20th anniversary. So 20 years PMI Switzerland Chapter to help the PM community to increase knowledge and to network. And in terms of this anniversary, we think it's something that we want to celebrate, but that we also want to celebrate together with our community. Or to make it more clear, we want that one of you, one of our community, one of our visitors celebrate our 20 years on a beautiful place in Switzerland. And for this, we created the game. And the game is ending now. So in all this year, in all our online events this year, we showed some words. The goal was to collect all our 20 winning words. And now the year is coming to the end. So our game is coming to the end. And I want to invite you all, every one of you can take part, even if you not joined any event before, because the winner will be drawn with those people who sent us words. Words we announce, as I said before, on our events, and today we will also announce some words. Then please collect all the words that you have found in our events, or that you can see on our YouTube channel, because most of our events have been recorded and put to YouTube. And if you go to YouTube, you can find the events from this year. You can watch the videos. Mostly at the beginning, we show the words. Write down the words and send all your words that you can find in our events to president@pmiswitzerland.ch. And if you do it till end of the year, you have the chance to be drawn on our AMM that happens on the 10th of February in Bern, an on-site event to meet people in person. There we will draw the winner and hand over the voucher for a beautiful weekend for 2 people in some of the most beautiful places in Switzerland that you can choose yourself. And before we start, I want to say thank you for the participation. And now please note the words that we show you right now. Today you have a special chance for this special event there is more than just one word. But it doesn't matter how many words you collect, you can send all the words to us. And if the technique shows us the words, this is the last 5 words. Note it, send it to us, and you will have at least a small chance. If you want to have a bigger chance, go to YouTube or take that words that you collected before. Thank you and see you in the 10th of February in Bern and our annual member meeting 2022. And now have an interesting and fun session with James Greene, our former president. Thank you, Chris, and have a good evening together. Bye. Christmas time, beautiful Christmas time, I forgot.
Thank you, Stefan. So now we are coming to the main event, transitioning from project manager to program manager. And our speaker is James Greene. So James started off in Southern California. He earned a degree in computer science, and he started working as a systems programmer. Then he expanded the horizons. He moved to Europe. And this is where James encountered his first version of the PMBOK, the first edition of the PMBOK, when he was working at Roche as an international project manager. And this experience inspired him to learn more about PMI. He discovered that our Swiss PMI chapter was in the formation stage. So he became part of the steering committee that got the first our chapter founded. He continued as a founding member. He continued to contribute to the PMI Switzerland community as a member of the board, as a VP of communication, where he became the father of our newsletter, and eventually as the chapter president. So James will continue, to tell us about his progression and his career through his talk tonight. But with this history, it is not a surprise that he continues to contribute to our chapter and share his knowledge with us with a talk such as what he will give this evening. So I have had a bit of a preview, and I can tell you that it is going to be a very exciting talk. And with that, we hand the microphone to you, James. So thank you very much, and we look forward to learning.
Thank you, Chris. So turn on my camera so people can see me. Yes, I do actually look a little bit like the picture on the screen. Good evening. As Chris said, I am a former president of the chapter. I'm a founding member. So I've been a member of the PMI Switzerland Chapter for 21 years, joining in early 2000 and helping to establish the PMI Switzerland Chapter in Switzerland. I was president 2007 to 2008. Back then we had about 800 members, if I remember correctly. Now the chapter's about double that, with about 14 to 1500 members. So it's been a very successful chapter, and I'm proud that I was part of the beginnings of it. So my presentation this evening is called Level Up, transitioning from the role of a project manager to a program manager. I'll be covering a little bit about my journey, how I went from being a project manager to a program manager, a little bit about the distinctions between the two roles, and some advice for people who are facing this transition or would like to make the transition. Some things that I've learned along my route, getting from managing a single project to managing a portfolio of projects. My career journey started, as Chris said, back 1986. I started working as a systems programmer for a high-tech company in Southern California, just as I was finishing my university degree, which I received in January of '87. 1990, I emigrated from California to Germany and started working for Hoffmann La Roche. I spent 10 years altogether working for Roche. In February of 2000, I transitioned from a corporate position into a consulting role. And over the next 14, actually the next 21 years, I was working for various consulting houses, mostly boutique consulting companies in the Basel region. My last job in the consulting arena was from 2015 to 2020, working for a life science consulting company based in Mainz in Germany. What I'm looking at this evening is this time from January 2010 until about July 2014, when I was working as a project manager and program manager for a fine chemicals company based in the Basel area. And a little bit of a discussion of what I was doing there, I'll present in a few moments. First, today, since November of 2020, so just over a year, I've been working for the company INEO. INEO is based in Jenbach in Tyrol in Austria, and is a manufacturing company, a former GE company. INEO was a management buyout back in 2018 of GE Jenbacher and GE Waukesha. And today it is run as an independent company, INEO. We produce, as you see in the picture here, large engines, and we produce them, we install them, and we maintain them with a large service area. These engines are used by energy production companies to convert natural gas or hydrogen into energy, strong power, and heat. So these are not the kind of things you'll find in a car. These are found in energy companies. So project management versus program management. What's the difference? Or how do they compare? First, a project management. What is project management? If you look in the PMBOK guide or you look in Wikipedia, it will tell you project management is the discipline of planning, organizing, motivating, and controlling resources to achieve a specific result. Now, what are those resources? Well, you've got a multi-dimensional package of resources. As a junior project manager or as a student, the first thing you always learn is the golden triangle with time, quality, cost, and scope. And you think, okay, it's got three corners and a volume, and that's all I need to manage. When you get into the PMBOK guide, you realize it's no longer a triangle. It's actually a elf-dimensional, I usually refer to it as a football, a soccer ball, because you're managing about 11 dimensions: schedule, budget, quality, your human resources, both your project team and your stakeholders, your technical resources, your equipment, your sourcing, your procurement, your risks, your opportunities, your communications, and the training of your end users. So you've got a whole lot of things that you need to manage as a project manager. It's a challenging job. Can be very rewarding, can be very frustrating at times, but you have a very clear mandate. You need to achieve a specific goal, and that's why the project was chartered. When you get into program management, it gets to be a little bit more fuzzy, let's say. A program is defined as a group of related projects, subprograms, and program activities managed in a coordinated way to obtain benefits available from managing them individually. To obtain benefits not available from managing them individually. Program management is the application of your skills, knowledge, tools, and techniques to a program in order to help achieve those goals. Now you start seeing the difference here. On one side, a project is very specific. You have a specific charter and a specific goal. A program is a lot more wide and is a lot less focused in many cases. And so I'd like to take a look at that briefly in the next few moments. Again, projects and programs are both temporary. They both should have a business case. They both should be aligned to your strategic business objectives, and they both, in the end, are there to deliver organizational change. But there are some key differences as well. As I mentioned, projects have a very clear, well-defined structure with clear responsibilities and clear reporting lines. Decisions that I take as a project manager are of a technical or procedural or a tactical nature. When I have to deal with changes to my project, I can evaluate them and I can take the best option that's available to me. Looking at effort, I'm working towards a well-defined goal with a clear scope and charter. Project duration are generally short-term efforts. You may have a project that runs for half a year, 2 years. But when you start getting into those longer terms, they usually end up getting broken down into smaller chunks, into project segments, so that you can manage each one of them, so that each project phase becomes a manageable unit. Your benefits out of a project are deliverable oriented. You're focusing on delivering a specific product or service or implementing an organizational change. Programs, on the other side, the scope and the structure of a program is defined through the projects. As a program, you have a sponsor, which is usually at the executive committee level or at a very high level in the company. You don't go to those kinds of committees with detailed questions. You go to them with strategic questions. They want to talk about strategies. They want to talk about long-term benefits. They don't necessarily want to talk about which technology you're going to choose or which direction you take in a specific area. They aren't interested in the details. They're interested in the long-term results. So in terms of effort, a program is a series of projects working to achieve a wider goal, which makes it very difficult at the outset to clearly define the effort. Much like agile projects, you don't necessarily know at the beginning when or how the project is, or how the program is going to end. You're not sure. You have a vision of what the project should deliver, but you haven't worked out all the details yet, and you don't know where all of the challenges are going to be hiding. So it's very, very difficult to do a clear planning and a clear budgeting of a program. You're usually given a rough figure to work with, and you have to manage your project with that budget. Duration, programs tend to be long-term initiatives over multiple years, and programs are conducted to deliver outcomes or benefits, not deliver individual deliverables. And I'll be going into that a little bit more over the next couple of moments. Here, visually, a project management focuses on the management of resources for tasks and deliverables, whereas program management is focusing on how to deliver projects that contribute to achieving a specific business objective. So the program itself may not have a hard deliverable. It may be something that is a long-term business objective of reducing operating costs over a period of years or increasing revenue through a series of projects to help improve your efficiency with sales and marketing, or in the case of INEO, for example, we have programs running to improve the effectiveness of our service team. And we have programs running to design the next generation of engines. And these are multiple year initiatives because designing one of our engines is not something that you can consider a project. There are literally thousands of moving parts, and every one of them has to be designed, and they all have to work together. And you have all kinds of analysis taking place of how to make them most fuel efficient, how to make them quiet so that we don't disrupt the neighbors who are living near one of our motors. All of these things have to take place. There are the amount of knowledge and the skills of the people I'm working with in the engineering department amaze me, because these people are doing calculations that boggle my mind, and the utmost respect for them. I don't understand what they're doing, but I know that they're doing it well. So to summarize, project versus program. The meaning of a project is temporary, creating specific objectives, undertaken to create a distinct product or service, whereas a program is a set of related projects executed to attain combined results. Focus on content versus context, short versus long term, concerned with deliverables versus benefits. Projects are usually within one functional unit, so one business function, whereas programs can cross multiple functions. You can have, as I mentioned, engineering projects or engineering programs that we're running at INEO. There are one program that has impact on multiple business areas. So you have projects running in the sourcing area, you have projects running in the quality area, you have project running in the engineering design area, and you have projects running in the sales and service organization to prepare for the launch of this new engine design. So programs cross multiple business units and multiple functional areas. Tasks are technical versus strategic. Again, a project produces output or change, whereas a program produces an outcome, produces benefits for the organization. And measuring of success, definition of done. When is a project done? Well, my project is done when I have delivered what it was chartered to deliver. It gets measured in terms of project quality, timeliness, cost, effectiveness, compliance, and degree of customer satisfaction. Those would be examples of project success. Program success is sometimes much less tangible in the beginning, because they're much more far-reaching strategic types of goals. So you get measured by the extent to which the program reaps the benefits for which it was initiated. So if I have a program that is trying to develop a new motor that will generate €1 million of revenue next year or in 5 years, I will initiate that project now, but it may take many years to actually show that we have achieved that benefit. So now a question for you. Is a construction supervisor a project manager or a program manager? I was thinking about this. This is actually a picture of my house. I'm actually sitting in the upstairs, the right side window at the moment. We had designed our house back in 2012 and had it built for us. And I was thinking about this question back then. As a construction supervisor, is it a project or is it a program? So I've got a collection of hand workers who are performing individual tasks, or are they actually executing their own projects with dependencies and interdependencies between each of them, with electrical wiring, heating, installation of water and wastewater pipes, installation of the sanitary, the toilets, sinks, and so on, the floor screed, plastering and painting of the walls and ceilings, installing the flooring, laying tiles and carpets. Are these projects or are these programs? So we've got a very short quiz or survey. What do you think? So 62% say that it is a project, 36% say it is a program, and a couple of people are just here for the PDUs. I love it when people are honest. To be honest with you, I don't have a correct answer for this. It is actually a matter of how you look at it. In the case of my house, I would probably say that it was actually a program, because when I was talking to the individual hand workers who were doing the work, each one of them actually was planning their activities individually, and which was at times interesting because of the interdependencies. So you would have the painter coming in to paint the walls, but then he would have to coordinate and communicate with the electrician, because if the electrician had not finished putting in the wires, then the electrician would cut through the wall that had just been painted so that he could place the wires. So it's, I actually do consider it to be a program, but there's actually no right or wrong answer here. You could look at it either way. So I wanted to present in this presentation a little bit of my personal experience. As I said, when I was working as a consultant for a consulting company based in the Basel region at the time, and I had been working on a project with one of the pharmaceutical companies, and my boss, our sales department, received a request from a fine chemicals company, also in the Basel region, saying that they were looking for a project/program manager to assist them with a technology upgrade project or a technology upgrade initiative. And so I was assigned to that customer and told, it's going to be a technology upgrade program initiative. And my first thought was, well, I've managed complex international projects before, so managing a couple of projects can't be all that difficult. What could go wrong? Over the next 4 years, I received an answer to this question of what could possibly go wrong. Not to say that this project or this program was a disaster, not at all. It was actually very successful and very well received. But there was times where it was extremely challenging. And so some of my thoughts have been collected in this presentation now. Here, a little bit of an overview of the programs that I was working on. From 2010 to 2012, I was working on the IT infrastructure revitalization called My Workspace. It was a major IT infrastructure upgrade. The company had neglected for several years to do any major technology changes. So they were running on very old servers in the back office, and they were running on Windows XP in the front, which was already going to end of life at the time when we were starting this program. We had to replace about 1,200 workstations, which were over their lease period. And the company had been using Lotus Notes as their primary information system, and they wanted to decommission Notes and move to a pure Microsoft platform. So the program was initiated to completely replace all of the data center servers, implement Exchange, instant messaging, collaboration platform, and then migrate data out of Notes into Exchange, into SharePoint. It was a much, much larger initiative than I initially planned. There was nearly 3,000 Lotus Notes databases that needed to be basically rebuilt. So in SharePoint technologies. And that was actually still going on when I left in 2014. So this was a very long initiative. This went on, the primary work was in 2012. Then late 2011, as we were making pretty good progress with the My Workspace program, my customer did a takeover. They bought a competitor. So we were suddenly faced with an organizational challenge of integrating an entire new IT organization, integrating and migrating all of the clients of the company that they had taken over into the IT organization. So we basically continued the My Workspace rollout to the SC customers, and at the same time had this IT integration and organizational change program that was taking place, trying to merge two different IT companies or two different IT or departments into one. As that was completing, the company decided to sell and diversify and sell off about 5 of its business units, which meant doing an IT carve out for each of those business units that was sold. They did actually sell all 5 of them to 3 different buyers, which meant an IT carve out, which was an entirely new challenge altogether. Having to separate out physical servers, separate out corporate data and ERP data, and ensure that nobody's taking away data that doesn't belong to them. So carving out data while ensuring data security was also one of those. This third project, the SPICE program, was the one that really raises your blood pressure. As a project manager, I was looking at this to begin with, and part of the advice I was giving to the project managers that were working in my program, or part of the observations I had of my project managers, projects that are part of a program have a different set of risks as compared to what you would have in a standalone project. You need to take some of these things into consideration when you're planning your project as part of a program. For example, the insufficient level of power to escalate issues, or securing key resources from within the organization. When you're in a program, you have a limited number of corporate resources available. And if your project requires an expert from the networking team, and there are 4 other projects running in parallel who require the same expertise, you are going to run into bottleneck situations. And then those bottlenecks, those dependencies on different projects and dependencies on individual irreplaceable resources become very, very challenging. When you're running a single project, you don't run into this issue as much because the resources are usually not suddenly in massive demand from a bunch of initiatives that are all running at the same rate. At the same time, you'll be facing higher resistance from your customers, from your business, because a program trying to achieve these much more strategic and far-reaching goals means you're going to have a much more impact overall on the business. And a lot of people will resist your project initiatives, feeling that this is a precursor to something terrible, because people, people do tend to be change resistant. Another risk that you run is redundant efforts across multiple projects. You find that some of the project managers are not communicating with each other. as frequently and as much as necessary. So you find that several projects are each of them reinventing the wheel instead of sharing information across the projects. The timeline, aggressive timeline leads to a lot of parallelization of many activities that would have normally been done sequentially, because you're being driven by the program, you're being driven by the interaction between projects within the program. Your project is not the end goal. Your project may be just delivering a raw material that is then used by the next project in the overall program. And finally, cultural differences between team members due to the global nature of many programs also make managing your project more difficult. If you are doing a project within a program, you might be asked to do it across multiple business units. So you're suddenly dealing with people in Asia, you're dealing with people in Europe, you're dealing with people in North and South America. And it becomes extremely challenging to find time, for example, to have a meeting where everybody can attend. In the program that I was leading, this My Workspace program, we had a status meeting once per week. And the status meeting meant, for us, it was mid-afternoon. For the colleagues who were in North America, this was first thing in the morning for them. And for our colleagues who were based in Singapore and in the Far East, we had some of them dialing into our call at 10 o'clock at night for them, just so they could present their project status. So you end up with these cultural challenges, the global working together, not able to all be in one room, makes leading your project more difficult. Sure, today it's a little bit different. We're all, unfortunately, very familiar with MS Teams or Zoom, doing business like that. Personally, I've now been in home office. I think this is now the 6th week in a row. Last time I think it was end of October was the last time I was actually in my office in Jenbach. So I miss it. But yes, doing business virtually does work, but I would still prefer to be in the same office with my colleagues, because as a project manager, I have learned you learn more about the project, about your project status and project health around the coffee machine than you do around a table in a meeting room. So making the transition from project manager to program manager, you need to think of it a little bit as you're going from being a pilot, leading a plane, bringing a plane to its destination, to suddenly sitting in the tower. You're no longer responsible for an individual flight. You're responsible for coordinating all of the flights landing or taking off from your airport. Another way to look at it is you're no longer the truck driver delivering a truckload of goods to a customer. You're now the disponent who is managing the delivery of packages across the country, or delivering of cargo across the country. So it's a different way of looking at it. It's also a different way of working. The tools you're working with are different, and your responsibilities are different. The project manager focuses, again, on content, on managing the project, managing the scope, schedule, tasks, resources, performing the technical tasks, whereas the program manager is focusing on the context, coordinating the projects, focusing on the people, the politics, and the negotiations to ensure that the program can achieve its goals. You're concerned more with change management and with dependencies between the projects. You're dealing with the business strategies and objectives, your shareholders rather than stakeholders, and you're responsible for maximizing the return on investment and value delivery for the program. So a little bit of advice for you if you are planning to make the transition from a project to a program manager. This is probably the most important lesson that I learned, which was I'm no longer managing a project. I'm managing a program, which means I manage the project managers. Managing managers is different than managing team members. And the quote from Teddy Roosevelt, former US president, came to mind as I was thinking about this. The best executive is the one who has the sense enough to pick good men to do what he wants done, and the self-restraint enough to keep from meddling with them while they do it. I know Steve Jobs at Apple had a very similar comment about hiring the best people to do the job and getting out of their way while they do it. If you're making the transition, again, program planning is much more esoteric. I used to joke about this with my sponsor when he would ask me for estimates or for predictions about how the project was going. I used to laugh and say, let me pull out my crystal ball and blow smoke on it, because that's sometimes how I felt. It was basically just pulling out the crystal ball and looking at it for inspiration. You have very few facts to work with, so educated guesses and gut feelings are how you are doing a lot of your planning. And later you move into more negotiating in order to convince your project managers to deliver what is best for the program, even if it's not necessarily the best for the individual project. When you look at risk management is very important, but it is at a different level of abstraction. I am not concerned, as a program manager, I'm not concerned necessarily with the individual risks that a project manager is facing. I am concerned more with the impact of those risks if they will impact the project manager's ability to deliver on time. Because, as I've mentioned, you are not looking at an individual project, you're looking at a process or a chain of projects. Whereas if one project is delayed, that will delay more projects down the line. So change management and quality management are much more important. The project teams need to recognize that their tasks and deliverables may not be the end deliverable, but it may be an input to subsequent projects. And if they fail to deliver to the specification and deliver with the quality that is needed for the next steps down the line, it's that old problem of having to take a dozen steps back to rework something and then take those steps ahead again. That gets very, very expensive and very, very time consuming. So as a program manager, you're constantly preaching, manage your risks, but also manage the quality and manage your communications. The project managers need to manage the expectations of the program, and the program needs to at the same time push back and remind the project managers that they are simply one link in a very long chain. Another critical factor I learned, dependencies must be managed, because it is very easy to get into a deadlock situation where project number 1 is waiting for project number 2 to deliver something, project 2 is waiting for project number 3 to deliver, and project 3 is waiting because project 1 isn't finished yet. So you end up in this gridlock, which can happen surprisingly much faster than you think. So in our project program reporting, we would always have a section dedicated to discussing and negotiating dependencies between the individual projects. And it was very important that the project managers identify and communicate their dependencies, negotiate them and agree them between the person who is expecting something and the person who is expected to deliver it. And you need to get their commitment that they will deliver as agreed. When it's delivered, you need to check and accept it as soon as possible, and then you can complete and close that dependency. So it's a matter of managing dependencies, and this leads into the next point of communications, because the project managers need to communicate with each other. Sorry, they need to communicate across the program with each other, as well as communicating up to the program management and down to their project team. So as a project manager in a program role, you are spending a lot of time communicating up, down, and horizontally. You need to make sure everyone understands the program goals, the scope, and the limitations. That they, as a program manager, you need to make sure that your project managers are communicating and exchanging information frequently, and you need to prevent information overload and spreading of rumors or false messages. So you want to make sure that when people are speaking, they're speaking the truth. Rumors can spread very quickly and can be very, very harmful. I was also asked when I was doing this what tools I was using to manage the program. Unfortunately, back in 2010, I did not have great tools to work with. So we were managing it with first with Lotus Notes, using that as a database and document repository. But most of the project management, when people were asking me about it back then, I used to say I'm doing PMPPT because I was doing project management with PowerPoint. Unfortunately, that was the best tool I had at the time. We did arrange weekly status meetings with each project manager asked to present a 1- or 2-page PowerPoint summary of their project, which I've got an example of on the next slide. Some of the project managers did do planning in MS Project for their individual projects. Others simply relied on Office tools, Excel, PowerPoint, whatever. And amazingly, it did work. We did get the program through. So it is possible, but it definitely was not the most comfortable way to do it. Today, I am leading an initiative to roll out a project portfolio management system, and it is wonderfully comfortable compared to what we had 10 or 11 years ago. This is an example of the project status reporting that was delivered by each project manager, essentially looking at their key deliverables with the smiley faces, reporting on what achievements were achieved during the previous reporting period, what they're planning for the upcoming period, risks and mitigations that the program needs to be aware of, and dependencies between projects within the program and their status of communicated, agreed, delivered, and so on. Again, this was presented by each project manager, briefly discussed at the meeting, and then these were stored on a Lotus Notes and later on a SharePoint, where you could look and see the status of each project as the weeks went on. To summarize the do's and don'ts for program managers, you do want to communicate, you do want to lead your program, you want to delegate as much as possible to the project managers, empower them to do their job, you want to coordinate between the projects, you want to optimize, making sure that they are communicating with each other and that work is not being duplicated. You don't want everybody reinventing the wheel. and you want to manage your risks and dependencies. At the same time, and this was a big lesson, you should not try to maintain a detailed plan of all project activities, resources, etc. That was actually a lesson I learned before I joined this program. It was a program that I was working on where I was a project manager within a program previously. They had actually a full-time project manager slash project assistant who was trying to maintain a detailed plan of a program. And it was a Microsoft project file. If I remember correctly, we had something like 2,000 tasks in that file. And it was an absolute nightmare because as project managers, you know how Microsoft project works. If one person changes a resource assignment, the entire scheduling cascades through, and the dependencies between the projects and tasks become very, very, very messy. And we had somebody working full-time just trying to maintain that detailed plan, which added almost no value at all to the program, but did keep one person very busy and very frustrated because the file was corrupted many times. So do not try to ignore or underestimate dependencies or the impact of changes of individual projects, because, as we've said, this is a chain of events, a chain of projects, and one change in one project does have this cascading effect on others. Don't assume that project managers are talking to each other. Again, you need to force people at times to speak to each other. And do not ignore risks and concerns raised by the projects, because those are usually the warnings that something is coming. So you need to keep your ear to the ground. You need to listen to people. You need to talk to people. You need to remind people to talk to others. It is a lot of training and talking, coordinating, communicating, negotiating. There's a lot more time spent talking to people than there is actually doing what we would consider hard project work. If you want to learn more about project and program management, yes, there are some wonderful books from PMI, the PMBOK guide you're all aware of. There is also the standard for program management. I have to sadly admit the 4th edition, I have not read it. I did read the 3rd edition when I was preparing the original version of this presentation many years ago, but I have not had a chance to take a look at the 4th edition. And much to my own shame, I have not looked at the 7th edition of the PMBOK guide either, simply because it's no longer part of my primary role to know the intricacies of everything in project management. As the PMO head, I am again managing my project managers and not managing individual projects very much anymore. So now, to open up for questions. As Chris said before, you can raise your hand or enter questions in the Q&A. And I'd like to hand back over to Chris. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, James. That was an excellent presentation. I see that we already have some questions. If anybody wants to raise their hand, our virtual team coordinator, Pia, may enable you to ask your question using your camera and microphone. But we can begin now with the questions that have already been asked in the Q&A section at the bottom. So this is the way to type questions, is at the bottom in the Q&A. So our first question, James, How do you see program management evolving considering agile transformation?
That's a very good question. I know that there's been some discussions about agile program management. I know that there is some movement in that way. I've talked with people about SAFe, also, you know, scaled agile frameworks. I think program management, my personal opinion is program management is not going to go as agile as a lot of projects are, simply because agile is very, very good for projects, because of the interaction with the customer, because of being close to the customer, being iterative, being able to define these tactical goals. But programs with their long scale, with their long, it's more the long view and trying to achieve benefits for the corporation. I don't see that necessarily being something you can make in a really agile way. But that's my personal opinion.
So it seems we have a brave soul who has raised their hand and can try to ask a question. If the technology allows this to happen. So maybe we try this again in a little bit. So our second question: when you received all the status reports, okay, so back in as a program manager from your project managers, how did you actually technically manage the dependencies?
Again, this was about 10 years ago, and from a technology perspective, we maintained a list. It was an Excel file, if I remember correctly, where we would just list them down and track them. And it was mostly chasing after people, asking them during the status meeting, have you discussed this? Have you negotiated it? Is it already delivered? Is this still an issue for us? So we did not have a really good tool at that time for doing this. So we were just, we made do with the tools we had.
Good. So as a recovering PMP, James, we have a question about the program management equivalent, okay, a PGMP.
Yes.
So this question is, doesn't a program manager need a PGMP as much as a program manager needs the PMP? Given the difficulties of transitioning, why is it that you never got the PGMP?
I would say probably for the same reason that I let my PMP expire. My role at that time was as a consultant, and I was working as an external, as a consultant. I was brought in to do this program. I did it for the 4 years that I was with this client, and then I moved on to another client. My primary focus was not necessarily program management. My expertise at that time was I was a consultant in the life science industry. My specialty was computerized system validation. And instead of going for a PGMP or something like that, I am a certified auditor for ISO 9001. And I'm a trainer at Concept Heidelberg for computerized system validation. And those areas were more interesting and more relevant for my career at the time. So I never did the PGMP. I have, if somebody is heading to become a project manager, I would definitely recommend that they look to the PGMP. Having a certification is never wrong. I just didn't feel it was right for me in my career at that time.
So you said that that it was Excel or PowerPoint, okay, management of dependencies.
PMPPT, I called it. Yeah, project management by PowerPoint.
So there is some interest in more contemporary software options. So
Yeah.
one person has asked, which project portfolio management softwares do you see becoming popular in the future? Specifically interested if they can handle both agile and traditional PM. And yeah, you said that you are working on something, so maybe.
Yeah, well,
maybe
right
you could
now
say,
we have just rolled out ServiceNow. ServiceNow PPM, or ServiceNow, it's called ITBM, IT Business Management, which is a project and portfolio management functionality plus agile development functionality using the ServiceNow platform. And since we already had ServiceNow in place for our service desk, and we also at the same time are rolling out ServiceNow as an enterprise risk management system, it's becoming a key platform for us in our IT department. So that's what I'm rolling out. We did look at other tools such as Clarity or what was the other one? Keyed In, I think, was the other one. A lot of the tools we looked at were very, very good, but at the end, for INEO, our business decision in discussions with our CIO, we chose ServiceNow, and we are I'm very happy with it. We're actually migrating people away from Adaptive/ChangePoint right now into ServiceNow so that we have a common tool across the organization.
good. So you have now defined your role as being sort of the PMO head.
Yes.
Is this essentially the same, or how is this different from being a program manager?
I think the difference is, as the PMO head, first, it's a management role. It's I'm part of the IT leadership. I am, especially the last couple of weeks, much more involved in more the strategic directions. So we have multiple programs that we are initiating, but my role now as PMO head, I'm leading. I have a staff that report to me, and I'm working with the business to help define the portfolios for next year. So I would say the PMO is, at least in the way INEO has implemented it, we're, I guess, one step above the program managers.
Okay, so this maybe you covered this question also. So do your project managers report organizationally directly into your PMO or into other functions? Would you manage your PMs differently? Okay, so how do you do it, and should you do it different?
That's a very good question. Actually, the way that we do it is, unfortunately, we don't have a whole lot of in-house resources. Most of our projects are led by what we call contingent workers. So we hire in project managers, and they come in, they lead projects or programs for us, and then they go away again. We do have a couple of project managers who are on staff, who are actually employed, and they tend to report into different areas in the IT. So we'll have a project manager who reports to the head of infrastructure, and he does the infrastructure projects. We have project managers who report to the ERP team, and they lead projects that are change projects on our ERP system. So actually, in my area of responsibility, I do have a couple of project managers who report organizationally to me, but our interaction is limited to our bi-weekly or monthly project status report meetings.
Good. How do you think that the skill set for project managers is different from the one for program managers? And does a program manager benefit from having a background as a project manager?
Definitely. Definitely. The skill set, technically, I would say the skills are similar. You know, you as a project manager, you need to have the personality, you need to have the skills to plan and execute a project. You need to be able to work with your team to get them to commit to deliver tasks, to deliver deliverables on time, on budget, and so on. As you take a step up, as I mentioned in my presentation, being a program manager, you need to have a bit more confidence because you're working with less information. You're not dealing with individual subject matter experts anymore. You're dealing with them indirectly through project managers. So you need to be comfortable, as I had on one of my slides, occasionally pulling out the crystal ball and guessing with confidence. And I often did find myself what I called doing swag analysis on things. And swag was a scientific wild ass guessing, which worked very well for me, I must say. Sometimes you just need to guess and guess with confidence.
So maybe it depends on the situation, but I wonder how the relationship might be different if if you work with the same project managers in your program for more than a short period of time. Maybe your relationship develops differently where as a project manager, it may be more people coming in and out. So
I think
is there
having a staff, having project managers on staff would probably be more rewarding because you could develop the maturity over time. Having externals come in, we try and look for the best qualified project managers, but each one of them comes in and has their own methodologies. So not having a huge staff of project managers that I can assign to tasks does limit my ability or limit my flexibility in improving the overall maturity of my organization. And that's sometimes frustrating because I would like to offer more training and you know, I've got my KPIs and I would like to see them improving over time. And that's difficult to do when I'm working mostly with externals, but it's the reality of working for a company like INEO that I don't have the option right now to hire more staff. So we have to work with externals to achieve our goals.
So I would say this event this evening was probably most helpful, for people that are still building the career. And the next question is about, what advice you might give for an experienced project manager looking to make this transition. So especially someone who had worked as a consultant and they need to get this first opportunity as a program manager. What advice might you give them to help them get that job and convince somebody that they have the right skill and to be successful?
That's a very good question. There's certainly an element of luck. You know, if you're working as a consultant, you don't necessarily have a lot of influence over which project you're going to be assigned to. I know when I was in my previous life, when I was a partner at a consulting company, you're sort of at the mercy of, you know, what customer is going to call us and what are they going to have for us. So you sometimes don't have a lot of influence over it. The best advice I could give to somebody who wants to become a program manager is don't be afraid to take on the big projects, because big projects, having international projects, and learning to lead those projects with confidence is the first step into having somebody have confidence that you're able to lead their program for them. It's a kind of a role that you kind of grow into. Nobody was born as a program manager, and we all start taking, we start crawling, and then we learn to walk, and then we learn to run. If you are interested in it, taking the PGMP exam or learning how to manage programs, reading the program management guide and trying to achieve the PGMP certification would also be a good way to show that you know the right terminology, you know what it takes to be a program manager. So that might be a career jump as well, getting certified.
People like to ask questions about tools. This one is specifically more about risk. So risks differ between projects and programs. Do you also see a difference in capturing, assessing, and monitoring risks within a program? And what tools would you use to monitor risks?
Back when I was doing these programs for the client back in 2011, 2012, we were managing risks, again, PowerPoint or Excel. Today, I would try and use a risk management system and have a more structured way of analyzing risks and issues. Most of the tools that are available today, even ServiceNow, does have a risk register built into their PPM. So you can, as you're planning your project, as you're executing your project, you can also capture risks and rate them and do a complete risk evaluation on them. I wish I would have had a tool like this back 10 years ago. It would have made my life much easier. But the risks, they differ between a project and a program in as much as project risks can be very specific, can be very, we have a risk that this technology may not work, so we must think about having alternative technologies or plan B, plan C, whatever. If those risks don't have an impact on your ability to deliver at the end, then those are project risks that the program manager probably won't care about particularly. As a program manager, I was concerned about the risks that have impacts beyond the scope of your project. Your impact, your ability to deliver on time, your ability to deliver within the specifications and quality required, risks that could have a massive impact on the overall budget. Those are the things that would interest me as a program manager. But an old colleague of mine, one of the first board members of the PMI Switzerland Chapter, our first finance VP, when I was speaking with him 20 years ago now, he was a program manager working for a pharmaceutical company in Basel, managing a budget of multi-millions. And people would come to him with a change request for a project and say, I need 2,000 Swiss francs more. And he would throw them out of his office because he said, that's a rounding error. Don't bother me with it. If it's less than 50,000, I'm not interested. Just do it. So it's a little bit also of the project managers are worried about the details. The program managers were worried at a much more high level. If you have a risk that means you're not able to deliver, I want to know about it. If you have a small risk that it may take an hour later, a day more, or cost 1,000 euros more, I don't care. That's not something that's going to impact my program.
So we have one question left. I think we've had some really good questions, so it could be a chance to sneak in one or two more. This one is, in your experience, what were the typical evaluation criteria as a program manager from your boss? So I guess this is like the HR, are they doing a good job? And the same question for a project manager. and how a program is being objectively evaluated and rewarded. So this is a couple parts, okay, of how you
Yeah.
evaluate if the two roles, if they do a good job, and yeah, how do you evaluate and reward a program?
From the HR perspective, because projects, as I said at the beginning, projects tend to be much more short term. You usually can measure a project manager's performance in the result of their project. Have they delivered on time, on budget, on quality? You know, basically using the dimensions of their project as their KPIs. By programs, it's more difficult because they tend to be longer term. The program may deliver a improvement, an overall organizational improvement, or a return on investment after 3 to 5 years. And from that perspective, measuring a program manager is, in terms of financial KPIs or something like that, is more difficult. So as a program manager, I was basically being measured on how well am I managing the program. Have we been surprised by any risks? Have we had any dependencies that led to deadlocks? You know, was I keeping on top of my program? Was I reporting up to my program sponsor in a timely manner? Basically, my sponsor wanted no surprises. And that was my, his biggest advice to me is, I don't want surprises. Be upfront, communicate, and keep me apprised of things. Anything that comes up, we can deal with it. Just don't spring it on me at the last moment. Don't surprise me. And so that was my goal to him was, I'm going to keep him in the loop. I'm going to keep him. He needs to be confident that I am leading the program and that he can trust me. So that was how we worked together.
Yeah, I think no surprises seems like an excellent takeaway message from the Q&A. We had some really good questions, and yeah, I think James was able to handle them pretty well. So thank you very much.
You're quite welcome. Thank you.
So James, you have shared some contact information.
Yes.
In case somebody needs a giant motor, or
I'm not in sales, so it's okay.
Okay.
But if anybody has any questions about about the presentation, or if there was something that I mentioned that you'd like more information about, feel free to send me an email. No problem.
So thank you very much, James. That was wonderful. We have you back another time for some more wisdom sometime in the future. For now, I would like to thank my fellow volunteers who helped make the event happen. This is Ethel from the Zurich events team, and Pia, our virtual team coordinator, who made all the magic happen behind the scenes. We would also like to advertise the existence, okay, of PMI Switzerland's brand ambassador team. And Alex here has offered to share his email as a contact. You could write to Alex to learn more about PMI events, about why it's good to be a member, how you might convince other people to join if someone is interested in joining. So Alex is a wealth of information about PMI and the benefits, and why it's helpful for more people to enjoy these benefits. So you are welcome to contact Alex at this email below, and we will send the slides out to everyone, and I will send Alex's email out to everyone also. So there are some upcoming events on the calendar. So very soon, okay, we will have a Why Did I Get into Agile event. This is an online event. I think it's a bit more informal, which is maybe very helpful for this type of event. This is December 14. We have a big event on the 10th of February. This is our annual members meeting. The keynote is Impact Warrior Excellence, How to Master Tough Times. This is an in-person event which will be held in Bern. We are leaking this this date, but the official announcement should come next week. In Basel, we have an active group running project manager networking lunch sessions. So this is the next session scheduled is the 13th of February. It's an in-person event for lunch, also very informal. And there are other dates that are also on the calendar later. And then the last event is the Project Management Masterclass. Title is Becoming Your Own Chairperson and Set Boundaries. So this is in March. And this is, again, an in-person classroom training event. And you can find more information, upcoming events at our website, PMI Switzerland. And we also get out the word with social media outlets. You can follow PMI Switzerland on, so you can follow PMI Switzerland on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, all of the options. I think I went past one slide there where I would encourage you to be a volunteer. This is what happened to us, okay, and brought us here today. James has been an Uber volunteer for many years, and this is what has made the chapter great. So for information about how to become a volunteer, you can look at our website, or you can email hr@pmiswitzerland.ch. And the last bit of news is that we would like your information about what you thought about this event with a very quick survey. It really is 3 minutes. It just has a few short questions, but it's really helpful for us to understand how to give good events. And then for PMI members, this is the code that you can use to claim your PDU. When it is a free online event, we will not claim the PDUs for you. So you need this code, and then you can enter this online to get credit for attending. This QR code on the right will take you to the survey. So if you could do these 2 things, that would be very helpful. And with that, our event is concluded. So thank you very much, James. Thank you for the audience attending and asking excellent questions. And we will see you at the next event. Good night.